and I can share my screen real quick. So basically we had, you had created the project section of the OpenFeature, or for the OpenFeature org here, which I think is great. It's using like the new, pretty cool projects beta. It's all good. My question is, like, these are all extremely high level. That's totally fine, but I need to start breaking it down into more, I guess, granular sections. Looking at the current state of GitHub projects, like doing like kind of nested high level or topics in here is not currently possible, maybe not even recommended. So would you recommend me like basically adding some kind of like, column and label here so we could filter like main initiatives? Or should I create
there are multiple ways. So if you want, I can show you how we do it for Captain.
Yeah, that'd be perfect.
Because there are a few examples, but yeah, in such case, you need to stop sharing the screen so that I do that.
Got it.
In just a second, I'll close Slack so that it's not disturbing. Okay, do you see my screen? Yeah, so do you see my screen?
Yep, I can see it.
Okay, so basically, when you work with GitHub projects, there are multiple ways to adjust the dashboard. Actually, there are multiple visualizations available only in projects beta. So for example, we recently created a documentation thing, and here you can see that there are labels, but also milestones. So for example, if you have a milestone, like, well, here we use it as a kind of epics, actually. You can.
Where are the milestones defined?
So milestones can be defined basically on the project level, well, on the repository level.
Okay.
So for example, for Python SDK, or we can say whatever 1.0 release.
So if I went to the spec, we could say the spec could be like alpha, beta, GA or something like that.
Yeah, we can do that if you want. So milestones, we can create a new milestone. Something like that.
Okay, and it makes sense to be that. Let's leave that one just optional for now, because I'm not sure when we can commit to that. But okay, so we'd want to be like that verbose too. We wouldn't want to say just like alpha, right?
We create a milestone, and this milestone actually exists only within this repository.
Okay.
So what you can do is you can group them, but yeah, this is a difference between labels and milestones, because labels, you can operate them across multiple repositories in GitHub projects.
Okay.
And milestones are not implemented like that. So for example, this is alpha release. Do we have any topics you would like to introduce in this milestone?
So in preparation for this meeting, I've started like defining all of the issues locally, and I was going to port them over based on your feedback. So I have a lot of things ready to rock, and I'll do that probably right after our call. Okay. But yeah, nothing necessarily, although we could probably move some of these, like, I don't know, the hook specification and stuff like that could be added to the alpha one.
Yeah, anyway, we can later adjust it if needed.
Yep.
So I will just a second. Okay, it shouldn't be a problem here. So I will just assign it to the milestone. Open feature spec alpha, so you can see it here. You can also see issue list right here right now. And what we can do else is that if we go to our project now, we can configure the visualization, because by default you cannot see that. But you can actually adjust the layout. So for example, you can set up milestone, labels, repositories, probably doesn't make sense, linked pull requests. So it's one of possible visualizations.
So I think keeping the main one as clean as possible makes the most sense. That was kind of what I was thinking, is like, if I like what you have here for the most part, and maybe I clean up just a few of these items, but I want it to be like, I think I want it to be these kind of high level topics, I think, and then maybe create views that could like show, this is the spec work, this is where we're at. Like,
this is what we can do right now, because yeah, for example, so this is not a good example, but for example, Captain Roadmap, how it looks like. we have slices of this roadmap for particular topics like functionality, well, core functionality, integrations, community, documentation, and we can do it like that here. So, for example, if you want specification, so here, for example, we can find a good image for that, but yeah.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, so here, for example, we can do search filter. And for example, we can just filter by the repository, for example. Or just a second, I don't remember what. Yeah. So here I just excluded, here I will include. So basically it's all GitHub queries supported here. Yeah.
Okay.
So here we, for example, took all roadmap items defined in the specification repository.
Cool. And then I could have something, yeah, in here. That makes sense. Okay.
So for example, what you can do, you can also set up all the visualization like we did before. So the repository doesn't make sense, maybe linked pull requests, labels, but yeah, you can adjust it as needed.
So when it comes to main initiative, would you recommend this being just kind of a dump of everything, or should I somehow keep it like at like extremely high level topics here? Because this is kind of like the main landing page.
So here you can adjust as needed. So one thing that for main initiatives, well, you still can have a filter even on the main view.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. Like, should I maybe apply something to only show like kind of high level topics here, or is that not considered like, I guess, good practice?
I'm not sure, because I would say that roadmap itself is high level topics already.
That's true. Yeah,
Because
and maybe actually like
yeah.
Just to some extent, some of these don't really make sense anymore. So maybe it makes sense to start dumping out.
Yep. So what we can do, so if you think that the item is already completed, so for example, GitHub organization bootstrap, so I guess nobody cares by now. So bootstrap governance process, we can say that it's done, because I believe it's done by now.
Yep.
So we can dump it if needed, but yeah, establish regular project meetings. Again, nobody cares by now.
Yep.
CF sandbox project application in progress. Define.
And the defining initial scope is more like I did actually update this issue associated with it, but it's I also want to port it to this.
Yeah, so what we can say that it's preview, that some bits are needed, but basically people who care could take a look.
Okay.
And yeah, for step bootstrap governance process, I probably close to the issue.
Yeah. Okay.
It's completed. So you can see
because actually, if you select that define initial scope, if you just like open it right there. So like I dumped a bunch of stuff in here as placeholders. Basically, I'm going to port this to basically initiatives more or less, and then hopefully apply filters based on some of the stuff you see here to like kind of reference all of that.
Yep, I agree. So yeah, define project architecture alpha version, I guess planned. Step communication channels are planned. So probably I should have created item for social media, project logo, yeah, done, archive. Initial project website, done, archive. Yeah. There should be a hotkey for the define the final governance model. Yeah, I think it's still open.
Yeah, we can do the announce project at KubeCon. That's done.
Yeah. Then beta release, yeah, general availability release. It's all far.
I mean, really, even number 1 is done too.
This one, I mean, well, yeah.
Define.
Okay, let's close it.
So, okay.
Yeah, so define initial scope.
I mean, honestly, most of these could probably go away when after I've gone through and done the rest, because I think you can accomplish most of the stuff with, you know, different labels and filters and whatnot. Like the road to general availability should probably be done with milestones based on what we're seeing here.
Yeah, this is what we can do. So now it's rather just polishing, and we can. So for us, of course, the main question would be what we need to put on the roadmap.
Sure, and
Because
I have that kind of done, I think now, so I'll start plugging away on that. And I think when that's done, I'll archive all the stuff you have currently here, I think. I guess the question is like, what would be a compelling main landing page? Like, what would be something that you could say, like, what is the current state of the project? Or doesn't it matter? Could we like look at, or because I almost need something that's like the spec is in progress, the whatever is, I think I need something like that, but perhaps not.
Yeah, this is a good question. So I think that so in Captain we just put whatever needed, and this view isn't very friendly right now. So what I would do here is that if you want top level items, maybe you could have a board that consists only of nodes. Because it's possible, I guess. So you can select filter that it excludes everything.
That's what I'm wondering. Maybe just have incredibly high level topics like whatever, define or like alpha release or something like that for the spec or something. So yeah.
Yeah, so see something like that. So we can do something like, example, command palette. Did I weird? So can I?
I mean, you have the little tilde in there. Is that necessary?
Oh no, it's actually fine. No, it's not fine because
I think you have to get rid of the dash in front of the org. You know what you did on the other ones?
Yeah, so this one just excludes everything, so it doesn't allow me to add a note like that, I believe.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I guess some filters are not exactly as one would expect. But yeah.
Okay.
So
I mean, maybe it's no big deal. I mean, maybe like at the moment, people care more about the spec. So maybe if I could put the spec as like the main landing page, basically, and show like the different topics that we're working on, where we are, things like that, may be really, really nice. And then obviously the SDKs are next, and then some of the other stuff kind of like downstream there. So maybe instead of doing some of the other pieces, I would just focus more on the spec.
So this one would be something like all.
Yeah, basically like all topics or something, basically. And then that would probably be at the end of the list. You know what I mean? It's like if you want to see everything we're working on, you would go to the last tab. But if you're going directly to the roadmap with no view selected, you'd land on the specification.
Okay.
So I think this is stuff that I can kind of handle. I was kind of just talking through or trying to think through it at like, what would make the most sense to you? That's kind of where I really wanted the feedback. I think the work itself I can do pretty easily. Seeing like the filtering, and you can create custom columns. You can add in like, whatever statuses you need. Like that stuff seems pretty straightforward. It was just, I was kind of just trying to figure out how we went from the stuff you had, which I think was solid, and breaking it down, because they didn't really have those layers of abstraction. Although actually, maybe you can help with this one. I saw something in a video yesterday that if like, say if you select test, for example, so number 9, if you open that up inside here, I think there's a way to write the issue in a way where you can like basically highlight it and say like break into issue or something. Do you know how to do that? Not the whole thing, not converting that to an issue, but like converting like a bullet point into an issue effectively.
I haven't seen this functionality, but let's see maybe. So basically it's a standard syntax for check marks.
And if you select it, don't do that. Select the test one, maybe in some, like if you hover, interesting. Because I saw in a video like from GitHub a few days ago, they had a way where it was like listed out as like
Yes.
tasks to accomplish. And if you hovered over it, it was like create like a sub issue or something.
Yeah, so maybe it's possible. Maybe it requires another feature flag to be enabled because GitHub uses feature flags.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
I can look into that. If I figure it out, I'll let you know. But I think like that would be pretty handy because then these effectively turn into like epics that could reference like issues and whatnot. So
yeah. Yeah, so you can see that there is a project. So I basically have all the feature flags enabled. I mean, once which are public. So there is a side panel that, yeah, so basically this is what we were trying. But yeah, so
yeah, I'll play around with that, but this all makes sense so far.
okay.
Cool. I guess, yeah, my main question was more or less like, should I create multiple projects or just try to apply a lot of filters and stuff to and have like one project that just encompasses everything and just has different labels that allow me to like slice and dice it.
Yeah, so what I would advise that the roadmap doesn't have to include everything. So roadmap is already for top level initiatives. So if you need to create something specific, so for example, Python SDK and whatever with 2000 tasks there, maybe you want to have a separate project. But for roadmap, you still have something top level like Python SDK version 1.0, Python SDK version 2.0, etc. with scope.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I think really what you have here, and I'm going to go through it with specification, but we have status and milestone, and then the title, I think will be very powerful. I'm not even sure if like labels are totally necessary then to some extent here.
Yeah, the benefit of labels is that you can quickly filter by them, especially on this view. So for example, you want to see all documentation items, you click and you get them.
Yeah. Okay.
So this is probably an advantage, but it requires labels to be properly set, that number of labels should be limited. But for me, actually, it simplifies navigation for all dashboard because I can easily get a slice without navigating.
Can you send me the captain one? I'll probably just use that as a frame of reference as I go through this. And how detailed are some of these issues? Like if you click on them, I guess technically they're not issues, are they? In this case?
Well, so some issues are quite detailed. So
That
for
one's
example,
pretty
captain enhancement proposals, they're basically pieces of specification. So they have specification, they have a bunch of statuses, they have linked tickets if needed. So these are detailed. Some other items like Captain Community Day and Cube Convalency, well, there is some text there is some checklist.
Got ya.
Yeah.
What about in terms of like a template for this to have some kind of consistency? Is there?
We have some issue templates. So for example, for bugs, for feature requests, for integration requests. And how it works. So for example, for integrations, we recently moved to another repository to avoid pollution of the main one. And here you can see issue template created by Adam Gardner. So there is basically a template that uses a new layout, which, so in GitHub issues, you can use forms right now.
Okay.
So this is this YAML.
Oh, cool. So it'll like pop up at like a form that you fill out to like start to template the issue. That's
so
sweet.
When you open it, actually, that's interesting. Why didn't it open it? I guess something is broken because usually, so it should generally open it. Issue templates, I believe. Just a second, maybe it's just a small bug I can fix right away. Because we were doing a bunch of experiments, but then some things got forgotten. GitHub, issue template. Actually, that's interesting because it really doesn't show it here. So for example, here, if you create an issue in Captain, it will show you a dialog where you can select a type of the issue. Then here, for example, new integration, and it actually opens this one, but copies all the context instead. So something is definitely broken in this repository. I'm not sure what, but yeah, I'll figure it out later. But generally, for each type, you can set up your own template, either as form or all style like this one. And then you automatically get labels assigned, etc. So users don't have to care about it.
Sure. Okay.
Plus, bonus points is that you can have additional metadata. So, for example, we send people to Slack. There is also security metadata, new integration, and you can see that it actually redirects to other things because we use standard GitHub metadata to adjust it. So it's not an issue template, but it points people on the same list.
The record is security vulnerability. That one's cool. Okay.
Yeah, so security is basically standard functionality. So for security, we have captain.github. So it's global configuration repository. And here, for example, we have security MD file. And if it's configured in this repository, it applies to the entire organization by default.
So I had a question about that. So we actually are using the .github I think you had set that up, and we have like licenses and stuff like that. But how does that actually apply to a new repository? Because it doesn't seem to just like inherit like I thought it was going to.
It should inherit. So let's take a look. So in .github here we have contributing, code of conduct, README.
Yep.
So these files are inherited. License.
Right, but if you create a new repo, it doesn't show up unless I'm doing something wrong.
It doesn't show up. So, for example, which repo do you want to take a look at?
Like if you just hit new, right? I guess and tried to create a new repo here. Do I need to do something special here?
No, you don't need. So I will just.
So, because like right here, you have like the license, like selection thing and all of that. If you just do nothing and do create repo, at least it wasn't for me creating or porting of the license and other stuff. See?
Okay, so let's take a look. So here, what you get by default, we have code of conduct. Referenced. So code of conduct comes from this main .github.
Comes from there. Got you. Okay.
So contributing file, it also comes from this repository. So here, so when you create a new issue, for example, it should show you your contributing
right there,
guidelines.
Code of conduct. Okay.
So it pulls this data. It doesn't pull license because the license has to be defined in every repository. It's just a requirement of some licenses.
So okay, cool. So everything's working. It's license was the only one that was a little tricky because I thought that would like be added right to the repository, but no, cool. I got you. Thank you.
Okay. So this repository can also be used to set up default GitHub Actions, to set up default issue templates and other things. So it's quite handy. But yeah, it still has its own limitations.
Yeah, got it. Cool. Okay. Anything else that you're noticing that needs like immediate attention? I guess like to go through, I think we're gonna have to make sure that the Apache license is like universally applied. Like it looks like it's missing from the Python SDK. I guess I'll make sure to add that prior to. Or does it not need to be everywhere?
Which one? So
like there, you can see like some of them like detected the license, other ones did not, likely because of what you mentioned, where it doesn't.
The license file has to be on every repository.
So we should go through and make sure that we add an Apache 2 license to all of them.
Yes. So this is, well, it's easy. You just do that once.
All right, and you can see them all right here. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, for the rest, yeah, most of metadata could be stored in .github these days.
Yeah, okay, cool. Okay, yeah, I think that helps quite a bit. I'm gonna dive into what we did. I'm gonna focus on the spec portion of that because I think if I have that in a good spot, it's gonna make people feel a lot better. I'm also gonna make the SDK repos public with that disclaimer. I'll probably also update this spec and try to like, I don't know, I probably won't get to it today, but I'm going to start updating that README a little bit as well. So, okay.
Yeah, it still requires some legal work to set up everything. I actually wanted to set up it in Captain and then move it over, then KubeCon. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. So yeah, I think this will help quite a bit though. If I can get this in a semi-decent spot, then I don't have to like individually answer Slack messages, theoretically at least, about like what the status is. It's like go look at the board, because that's basically what I would be doing. So
Yep.
hopefully that helps. I'm hoping to have it done by the community meeting, at least maybe not done, but like underway, solidly underway, so people can understand what we're doing.
Right.
My only concern about this, and I think we've already talked briefly, but it's like the reason I was reluctant to do it at first was, to some extent, it feels like we're sort of mandating the direction now. But of course, someone needs to kind of take some kind of initiative. So I'm not sure how to balance, initiative versus community.
Well, for me right now, so the project is in pre-alpha stage. The governance is in bootstrap stage. So basically, we go, we try something, we learn, we adjust.
Okay.
And for me, it's perfectly fine that you create a template roadmap. I mean, put everything there. It still comes on with a disclaimer. Then basically review it with the team at the meeting, and then you agree what goes there, what's not.
Okay.
So I wouldn't be too concerned about doing some experiments right now, because everything is under the disclaimer of experiment.
Yeah, that all makes sense. Okay. I guess last question, because it just came in like 25 seconds ago. Someone just opened up an issue on our spec talking about hook context and stuff like that. This is a good question, but like if we were talking about from like a project planning standpoint, if I had like hooks as a item on our spec, project board, would it make sense to like reference something like this inside that ticket effectively? So it's like, it's a little bit easier to drill in, or no?
Yeah, I think it can be totally done. So one, of course, is milestone, which is probably not appropriate there.
Right.
But yeah, so formally there is no sub-tickets on GitHub issues, but you can just reference it. So for example, 68, and this is what draft hook specification, right?
Yes.
So here, for example, we could do like I usually do, so something like scope. Here you can use this metadata, which is a checklist. And here, for example, yeah, we around hooks. What else we have? So, for example, hook ordering at state. Finally, hook errors.
Right. Okay. And then this could basically be slapped right back onto the like this should be probably converted into like a road or a yeah, like yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I think
so for example, let's try to do it. So I put it here. Then I put it on the roadmap.
On the project. Okay.
So on the project right now, we don't have automation set, so it just goes to no status. Because if you set up automation, you can actually set up automatically states based on statuses, etc.
So yeah, that would actually be cool too. Like if we could throw, like if it's something new, it should probably be under like proposal or something like that. And then we'd have to kind of manually change it to.
Yeah. So for example, currently we can put on
or backlog or yeah, whatever.
Yeah, so for that, you can easily set up automation. So I believe workflow. And here, for example, when item added to the project, set status backlog, set enable.
Just enable it. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so there is a bunch of default workflows. So they actually patch this interface quite a lot. But yeah, by default, right now it should be by default.
Cool. So now if we go to the specification tab up here, it should show draft hook specification.
Yeah.
Right. Like if we do the one in the top left here, it should show just that one, hopefully. Right. Like the other tab off to the left slightly.
Sorry?
The specification tab that we have up there, that should just show this one. Okay. No, we added a few others, but I see. Okay.
Yeah. So you can also set milestones for these, because I believe that So here we basically get only a top level item because we haven't added other to the projects. But once you navigate, you can see all these items.
Yeah, okay. That's what I want to do here, because I think having all of those listed out, fairly well, and then it starting to link to other issues and discussions about that makes it pretty nice and quite a bit more transparent then. Okay.
Yeah,
because then it says tracked. That's what I was looking for. You see that tracked in 42 at the top. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So basically GitHub adds all references automatically. Yeah, here I'm just adding milestone. So you can easily do it in other interface, or maybe you can just, maybe at some point you want to create a label for hooks. You don't know, so it's up to you how you define it. But yeah, now if you go to milestone, you will actually.
Can hooks be repo specific?
Yes.
Or are they org specific?
So for org specific, what you can do, so if you go to GitHub organization, so here you have opportunity to set up default labels. When a new repository gets created, then you get labels.
Right. Okay.
Topics. So for example, for topics, we can say that by default we.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. So here you can adjust these labels. There are also configuration as code topics. So for example, settings YAML GitHub application, which can actually add GitHub settings as code. So yeah. Just showing, so maybe it's mostly for Simon or whomever wants to play with it. So there is an app called settings, I believe. Maybe they moved it. No, it's still here. I'm not sure why I didn't find it.
Okay. And then with that,
yeah, there is view all button. Okay. Yeah, but basically this is a Probot application. So basically Probot means that it's standard configuration framework. And you can define this .github settings YAML in the .github repository. And once you do that, every repository which is connected, it will get set.
Oh, that's sweet. Okay. Cool. Got you. So and I'm assuming if we leave things out, they're just left undefined, but setting things like homepage and topics and stuff would be great to automate.
Yep.
Cool. Yeah, no, that's a great tip. Can you send me that one too, actually? It's just app settings. I can find that actually.
Yeah. So I'll send it to the chat and you have this recording. So
GitHub's pretty flexible, man. It's pretty cool.
This is actually a main difference between GitHub and GitLab and other systems, because they invested a bunch of time in this ecosystem. So both apps and actions. And thanks to that, actually, there is a lot of features available. So
I've not even looked at this, but that's a good tip too. I'll take a look and see what we can do.
So yeah, there is basically infinite organization management things. So for example, hello bot, stale bot, which automatically closes stale issues. Well, I hate this bot, but it's a separate story. But yeah, you can actually find a lot of good stuff here. Or for example, I personally a big fan of Release Drafter, which automates release changelogs based on pull requests. So it's not a Git changelog, it's more high level based on pull requests.
Okay. And so would that mean that we really, semantic convention would not really be necessary? Because that was something that we were actually, Todd and I were talking about. It's like, do we try to enforce semantic convention, or do we just use like detailed pull requests and stuff?
I would rather suggest detailed pull requests, to be honest. Well,
that was Todd's hope as well. So I think that's good to know. Okay.
Yeah, so we use it in Jenkins. We're quite successful. Again, I have no idea what my marketplace search doesn't work, but I'm able to find all these bosses, etc. right now. So we use it in Jenkins, and for example, most of Jenkins change logs for plugins are currently built on this app. So for example, let's take something useful like configuration as code plugin. So here currently we have continuous delivery. So sometimes the versions are not that informative.
Okay, and that comes from the PR like title then, and then you just drill into the.
Exactly, so it's basically a title and label. So for example, here you go.
How do you enforce that on the pull request, or don't you?
It's automatic. Oh, you mean how you enforce?
Because like here's going to have something on here, right, to know if it's like a breaking change or something, or is that like, how does it know that, or does it not?
So for example, for breaking change, what we have in Jenkins, unless it changed or since I stepped down a bit. So here, for example, we just have a label for breaking or for removed. And once you put this label, it automatically gets here in the top.
So you just apply that to the pull request and it just works.
Exactly. So for
that's
example,
sweet. Oh man, that's way cooler than doing like a semantic commits and stuff.
Yep.
Because then everyone's got to screw around with that, and you gotta write tooling around it. So this is way cooler.
Yeah. So basically, currently release draft is maintained by a few people from the Jenkins community because we adopted it mostly everywhere. So here, for example, we just use .github. So you can see that even for the Jenkins core, we have a unified configuration. So for example, GitHub, if you go here, it's release drafter. So here you can see basically how it works for us. So by default, we use 2-digit versioning, not samware, but you can configure samware as well. Here we have priority, so based on label like breaking, removed, major features, etc. So we generated this layout. Then we also have some excluded labels so that we don't include everything. And then we also replace some text. So for example, here we automatically capture issue IDs from Jira and replace it by Jira hyperlinks. So if you have a release, it gets automatically replaced. And for example, for us, we can use the same for OpenFeature enhancement proposals or whatever they call it eventually.
Okay.
And
interesting.
So it's quite helpful actually.
And is that's just applied across all orgs then, because you're putting that inside your .github file?
Yeah.
Or should I do it like in one of our repos at first and then move it?
Yeah, as you prefer.
Okay. What do you think? What would you recommend? Or doesn't really matter at this stage?
Well, it doesn't really matter at this stage. So for issue templates, I would recommend to start them building them in the main in .github right away, because otherwise it's difficult to drag them. For GitHub releases, etc., you can actually start using .github as well. Because the tricky point, even if, so here I just use source repository, but you can actually have multiple configuration files.
And then that just, is something you just get to choose from then. Like GUI. Okay. Is there some like instead of just reinventing the wheel for like issue templates, are there some like good resources for I can just kind of like, borrow and modify?
Yes, there are actually even a repository for issue templates. The problem that I believe that it wasn't updated templates, if I recall correctly. So the problem for that is that I'm not sure this repository was updated to a new version. But here we can just check. So for example, issue template. So you can see that these are rather old versions.
Okay. I'll poke around and see. I just like no reason to reinvent the wheel if someone's already done a nice job coming up with a pattern. But
so you can find there is a bunch of repositories. There are many projects that heavily use it. So in Jenkins, we were early adopter of many of the features, but now we rather need to catch up for issue templates because we haven't adopted alpha yet. I mean, this YAML forms.
Yeah.
But
Cool. Okay. I think that helps a ton. Yeah. Thanks for going over. Oh, can you send that to me too? That release chapter thing. I didn't find it in an immediate Google search. So if you have it, that would be cool.
Yeah. So.
Sweet. Yeah, I think those apps and stuff look sweet. That's something I'm gonna definitely keep in mind.
So when somebody asks why I cannot use GitLab right now, it's because lack of this ecosystem. Because even before they introduced GitHub Actions, it was super powerful. And now with GitHub Actions, where you can basically do anything you need for organization management, it became super cool.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I think, and I think I'm going to sync up with like David periodically, but just doing some kind of regular touch points. Cause like this, like I knew I was kind of lacking in some areas, but like going through it with you, like there's stuff that like looks incredibly useful and I had no idea existed. So like doing these at some semi-regular sync, I know you're super busy, but anything where we could kind of just go over, you know, org health related issues or something would be pretty
Happy
handy.
to do that. So actually, we need to do it anyway because we need to share expertise even within our OSPA. Because all of us have different experience. So Simon, for example, a new team member who actually helps with Captain right now. So he also has a lot of GitHub organization maintenance experience, but we don't have the same experience. So it's a great opportunity for knowledge sharing.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be super frequent either, but just doing it every once in a while would really, really help, I think. Cool. All right, I know it's getting super late there. I really, really appreciate the time. And yeah.
I still have another meeting, so.
Oh my gosh.
I spent almost all the morning trying to get the passport, and it totally failed. So.
That's a bummer. Well, best of luck with everything, and yeah, don't burn yourself out though.
Yeah, thank you. So should I just publish this video on OpenFeature YouTube as unlisted? Because I don't think there is anything secret there.
Yeah, that's fine with me, I guess. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, so unlisted so that it doesn't go through all the notifications. Well, eventually, we might just want to have these notes about implementation, etc. But
I don't know about that, but maybe I guess the world can see how naive I am to some of these GitHub principles.
Okay, all of us contribute to open source. You can go to my first commits to open source. Well, I hope nobody does it when they interview me.
Yeah, sounds good. Cool. All right. Yeah, thanks again for your time. Have a good night. We'll talk to you later.
Bye.